Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Look at my sheet of paper that I brought with me.
So, he's got a piece of paper this week. So,
I have things to talk about.
What subjects have you got?
Oh, am I going first?
Well, why not?
All right, I've got to pick one now. Oh no, yeah. Let's talk about Russia.
Wow, jumping right in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
May as well start off on the deep end.
What thoughts you got about Russia, Jake?
Well, I was hoping you could start because I'm not 100% sure what we meant about that when I was written down.
I've just heard shit about Russia a lot, so I just thought I'd throw that in there. Talk about Russia.
No, we need to talk about the fact that they poisoned somebody in the UK.
What thoughts have you got about Russia? So, well, Jake.
Well, no, I think we need to talk about the fact that somebody was poisoned in the UK.
Right.
Allegedly. I'm pretty sure we know, at this point. But,
okay.
It was a double agent who was living in the UK. I'm assuming retired, if,
Shall I get started?
Yeah.
Okay, so what effectively happened is that a nerve agent, which is part of an N series of nerve agents that were
specific to Russia, right?
That was specifically engineered and manufactured within Russia. We only know this because there was a Russian chemist that defected to the US and intelligence was shared. The only thing this Russian chemist knows, though, is that the identifying signatures of what that nerve agent is when it actually is starting to attack the body. He doesn't know what the nerve agent is, chemically speaking.
Jesus.
The reason for this is quite simple.
We don't know what it's called.
The reason for this is quite simple. Generally, if you're doing research into chemical weapons and bioweapons, you tend to not have a team know what the entire process is. You compartmentalize it. He was specifically focusing on methods of detection. So if anyone's wanting to turn that into a fucking conspiracy, that's why. So...
Getting right in there with getting right in there with the preventative measures.
Yeah. So the Russians specifically made this because they wanted a nerve agent that no one knew about. Well, they wanted a series of nerve agents that no one knew about.
Oh, there's more than one then. This is
it's part of an N series. It's the N series of nerve agents.
So this is the first movie, but there'll be a sequel. Nerve Agent Mark II, The Fucking.
Now. Okay, so
let's get back to the important bit about the fact that it happened on British soil.
Well, this is kind of interesting. I'm just going to put this out there. It was definitely the Russians. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, it was the Russians. This isn't some bullshit false flag operation and all this stuff.
Have you seen Putin's face when he talks about it?
Yeah.
He's just like, it was not us,
but
it was.
But not really. but still, as well as it not being us. It was us. Because he's in Stuart Lee.
Yeah. As well as this being a joke, it is actually what I did.
What's going on with that accent, by the way?
Oh, right, yeah. No, that's my Russian accent. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, as for the motivations of why Russia did it, well, multifaceted, and there is a blanket term that this kind of maneuver, this kind of action from one country to another falls under, which is asymmetric warfare. It is a way of destabilizing and sowing the seeds of chaos within a country to undermine other things that are going on, so that while you focus on what it is you want to do on the geopolitical sphere. That is all it is.
So, keeping us in Brexit.
I mean, you could argue that, but it's all over the news, which means other things are not in the news. You've got the public thinking about this and not something else.
So what is the something else is the real question.
Or is it just that you are adding more complexity into an already complex system?
I remember we talked about this a while ago about the fact that Russia had hired a particular person who originally went I think it was Afghanistan or Iraq, and the guy essentially his job was to sow destabilization into a country by bombarding them with so many different messages.
I know who you mean.
Okay.
He didn't go to Iraq and Afghanistan. He was on the abstract art scene in Russia.
That was it. Yeah, that's a bit different from
yeah,
going to Iraq, but whatever.
I think he was hired under the pretense of being Vladimir Putin's PR exec.
Yeah.
But basically, he refined this asymmetric warfare system when it comes to, this asymmetric warfare strategy when it comes to propaganda. And Russia specifically and many other countries are focusing on social media and the internet with the use of chatbots and fake accounts to sow the seeds of dissent. So an awful lot of what you got to remember is an awful lot of these conspiracy theories that are doing the rounds may well be Russian chatbots that are sowing the seeds for. The point is to create a state of confusion where no one really knows what's going on.
And no one does.
Yeah.
So it succeeded.
Yeah. A couple of interesting things. A number of other former Russian defectors have also died. Some have been found hanged in there. The one guy was found hanged in his apartment. I think someone else died under suspicious circumstances. So basically every other former...
Don't you mean was hung in his apartment?
Yeah, I guess I mean that. Don't remember what I actually said.
Yeah, you just said hanged. It's the same. I was just pointing out the fact that somebody did it. That was all.
All right.
You know,
Random
trying to sound
answers.
cool.
It was kind of cool, to be honest with you. I'm just responding defensively because now I feel foolish. I don't. But...
No, you must never doubt yourself.
And I don't.
But let's get back to the important topic about the fact that it happened on British soil.
Yes.
Matt.
Now,
God damn.
This is the cool thing. Sorry, cool is the wrong word to use here, but this is the bit I find most interesting. What you've got to remember is they used a nerve agent that could have affected hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and they used it against one person, and another person also faced the brunt of it because they were next to him.
In a pizza place, right?
Yeah, I mean, a number of other people were exposed, as was the policeman who was the first responder.
Did he die, by the way?
He's not dead yet.
He's not dead yet.
No, but his and his daughter's life, if they do come through this, will be severely shortened, without a shadow of a doubt.
Jesus.
Does a number of things to the body, which cause long-term harm.
So the policeman's pretty fucked as well then.
Potentially depends on his level of exposure.
Oh Jesus.
What I find interesting is that Russia will know the location of a number of Russian defectors in the UK, and I can't help but wonder if they deliberately chose a target that was near Porton Down to further sow the seeds of confusion, which is part of the conspiracy.
Near where, sorry?
Porton Down, which is basically the only reason we know it's the N series nerve agent is because the samples were taken to Porton Down. It is I believe it's the only chemical and biological weapons research facility in the UK.
Right.
It's a complex of facilities of buildings, both publicly and privately owned, I believe.
I mean, the fact that they used the nerve agent that could only be Russian,
yeah,
in and of itself is them basically putting their signature on it, right?
I mean, there's room for the idea that one of the chemists involved with the project knows what the two precursor units for the nerve agent is and has defected somewhere else, and someone else is doing an operation in UK soil.
Yeah.
Like that I can't.
North Korea.
I kind of doubt it. Like,
so do I.
Why would a Russian defect to North Korea? That's kind of what I think.
Yeah. No, it's fucking Jesus. And so, in response, Miss Poundland Thatcher, in her remarkable clarity of
vision,
her
strong and stable vision,
has ejected a bunch of Russian diplomats.
Yeah, from embassies.
That are now actually counterintelligence spies or whatever the fuck. And that seems is that an appropriate response to how it's gone down?
Like, it's an appropriate response in the sense that the polonium that was smuggled into the UK was most likely brought in under the guise of diplomatic immunity.
That was the previous assassination, right?
Yeah.
Was it the Umbrella?
Like
a dart?
I've heard conflicting stories about this. I should have double checked this before we started talking about it, actually. But there was one guy who I thought was shot with a dart of polonium that sat in his body and killed him. But then there was another one on a plane, apparently, which was also polonium. So I don't know. I've heard conflicting stories on that one. But the ejecting the Russian diplomats is kind of a gesture of like, we know that you do espionage via your diplomatic immunity system, so you guys can all fuck off.
Right.
It's a stronger message than one would think. Like, so I kind of understand why Theresa May has done this, but on top of that, they don't necessarily want the general public to be as acutely aware of what is going on and the games that are being played.
As they now are.
Well, I mean...
Well, because I remember reading in the news that the reason that she was getting rid of the diplomats was because they were actually spies. Is essentially what the news was saying.
I understand.
Very close to the idea of...
Yeah, no, I understand that, but like you don't necessarily want to make it clear exactly how this kind of stuff operates.
Right.
In the same way you don't necessarily... information on like chemical weapons and nerve agents is quite heavily restricted. It's one of those things that if you search it and hit a number of keywords, you'll be put on a list. You'll be added to a database of people who've done that.
Oh, we're in so many databases already. It's not even funny. You more than me.
What? I wanted to read Mein Kampf. God, kill me.
Well, I just wanted to find out if I could, blockade all of the fuel in the UK with 3 fucking trucks. Oh, that's a story for another time.
Yeah, that is a story for another day. The goal is working. It's working in the sense that the public sentiment is like conspiracy is rife. A whole load of shit is going on all over Facebook and social media that is sowing the seeds of confusion.
People are scared.
Well, I mean, this is it. I mean, are you scared? I'm not.
Oh, but I don't think we're representative of the population. I've got to say that much.
That's true. I mean, I'd probably feel different about it if I lived near there.
Yeah. I'd probably feel different about it if I ever went out to eat. But I don't, because paying somebody to cook my food for me just seems like an absolute waste of money. So.
Yeah. So. I mean, the interesting thing is the government is going to have a fucking spotlight on it at the moment.
Oh,
Everything that it does is going to be criticised and spun different ways by different groups. Unfortunately, it's one of the things I've noticed on liberal Facebook groups. Like, conspiracy is rife, saying that this was done by our own government. Kind of fucks me off because I do consider myself pretty liberal. And then I realise, oh shit, this community that I'm engaged in is also full of these people.
No, Matt, you've got to understand, political leanings aside, idiots are everywhere. So
that's a fair point, and I should join some conservative Facebook groups to see what is being said there. Yeah,
because it's not like we're all fucked up and just conspiracies are running rife, and then the conservative side is just a well-ordered, oiled machine. I think it's just all over. This is happening everywhere.
I mean, you do have a point there, and I am in my own bubble.
Well, yeah, but everyone is really.
Should check on 4chan.
Oh, Christ, I don't want to go there.
See what Pol's got to say about it.
Oh, no.
I'm sure there's some interesting things there.
Really?
Yeah.
Alright.
There's some crazy whack job conspiracies on there. When there was one guy on there saying that, this was fucking months ago, there was a guy that's making the argument that when North Korea did its underground nuclear test, it was, and then I think a few days later there was a massive earthquake in Mexico. He was trying to say that actual underground test triggered the earthquake in Mexico because there's a term in geography called an antipole. So where you stand on, where we are now, the exact opposite side is the antipole, right? And he was making the argument that the epicenter of the earthquake was the antipole of North Korea, of where the nuclear test happened in North Korea. What are you doing?
Oh, I was looking at Pole.
Oh, okay.
While you were talking, keep going.
Have a little reader poll. But then when you actually think about it for 5 seconds, you realise Mexico is not an antipole of North Korea. You're chatting complete shit. Anyway.
Welcome to 4chan.
Yeah. But nonetheless, my point is this. It's always interesting to watch people just empty the contents of their whack job ideas onto the internet.
Discount bargain brain pan into the fucking...
Because as we all know, everyone's opinion is equal.
No.
Good. I'm glad we agree on that one.
Everyone's opinion can be heard.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Well, no. Sorry. Everybody's opinion
doesn't mean I have to respect it.
Everyone's opinion can be voiced, but it doesn't mean everyone's opinion needs to be heard.
But it should quite rightly be judged on the
merit of its arguments.
Yeah. So Which brings me to a topic that we're going to be talking about later. But,
right now, man.
No, we're done with Russia. I don't think we are.
Are we not?
No.
Okay. What else is there to talk about apart from the fact that Russia, produces great vodka, great music, and scary amounts of political intrigue?
And Tetris.
And Tetris.
Let's not forget Tetris.
Yep.
As for what Russia is wanting to do at the moment, I think it's probably quite likely that they are trying to form a stronger relationship with China.
By destabilizing us.
Yeah, to prevent, while we're distracted with this, it makes it harder for us to encourage China not to get friendly with Russia. So we are devoting intelligence services to doing this. So, for example, it wouldn't surprise me while this is going on, Russia is doing other activities in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Right? And because China wants to annex Taiwan, as an example. Like, if you're dedicating all your intelligence resources to a problem that has occurred on your home ground, which is quite likely currently, not all your resources, but you know what I mean, it makes it harder to spot things going on elsewhere. And then equally, the government itself also has to do damage control with respect to public sentiment and stuff like that. All of this is time that Theresa May is now not spending on security monitoring the geopolitical scene.
I mean, I'm just annoyed that it's taking away from the fact that we need to stop doing Brexit now, because it's a fucking bad idea.
I mean, that's a conversation for
right now. Brexit.
Okay,
Brexit.
There is one other thing I wanted to say regarding this, actually, which is that I've just recently read an article which I need to check the sources on, but basically you have Whitehall, which is the civil service section of the government. They put together briefs from branches of the government, for example, Ministry of Defence stuff, which they then give to the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister, in this case, Theresa May. But apparently, Theresa May withheld certain information to Jeremy Corbyn.
No fucking way.
Yeah, which is why the argument is it's why he asked if a sample was going to be sent to Russia, because if they had both read the same report, Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't have asked that, because it is quite clearly Russian based on the intelligence that we have. It's just an interesting thought if true.
Oh, man.
And what would make this doubly interesting is Whitehall is meant to be totally impartial.
Yeah, but everyone's terrified of Jeremy Corbyn.
So are we saying that the civil service is also against Jeremy Corbyn when they're meant to be impartial?
I guess that would
if that is the case, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Not because it's Jeremy Corbyn, but just that they feel that they are within their right to do that. Don't get me wrong, I am a big fan of Jeremy Corbyn, but ignoring my fandom of Jeremy Corbyn just on a how our government runs, an impartial level is still terrifying. I could hate the leader of the opposition. I'd still be terrified that was done.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's it's not good.
So Brexit.
Yeah. Brexit.
What are your thoughts, Jake?
Well, I recently, because it's impossible to avoid Brexit facts that pop up on your Facebook feed and all that sort of thing. There's one.
So when you say facts, do you mean facts or facts?
Yes and yes. So the one I saw was children born today will still be paying for Brexit when they're 43 years old, and that's just the amount it's costing to divorce from the European Union, and that's not including the economic
impact.
Yeah, impact fallout after we leave. That was quite, sobering. Almost knocked the laptop over and ruined the whole podcast. There we go.
I mean, I would like to know how that's calculated, but okay.
Yeah, me too. But it's just a staggering amount of money that this is going to cost this country, which means the whole point of Brexit is just to consolidate power for the rich, because they don't care if they lose a percentage of their wealth, because it doesn't affect them as much as it affects everyone else.
I mean, to quote Michael Caine, I'd rather be a pauper, and I'd rather be a pauper king than a king that answers to another king. My name is Michael Caine. Not too many people know that.
Yeah.
So, we've got sovereignty, mate. We've got sovereignty now.
Fucking Tories. Jesus Christ.
It's worth it for that lovely fucking sovereignty.
Yeah, it's not though,
It's
really,
great.
is it? Like,
It's great. We're gonna.
it's worth it because it means that
We can make our own laws.
when Russia comes over and starts murdering people in our country again, no one's gonna fucking care. I mean, nobody really cares now because we're leaving, but no one's gonna care even more when we left.
People would care.
What? Who would care? Yeah.
Holland, Finland, and Sweden, because Russia would have to be doing manoeuvres through their waters in order to come at us, bro.
Oh, alright.
So the EU would give a shit.
Alright, they may give a shit. Are you talking about genuine military movements?
Mm.
No, I was just talking about more people getting killed with nav agents and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Like, people would destabilise us and we basically just be on our own.
Again, I think the EU would have an issue with that, just given the amount of people given the amount of countries within the Union that has a direct border with Russia.
Right, fair. Yeah. But I mean, because I remember, like, ideas thrown about in regards to Brexit, in that if, like, the UK leaves the European Union, it is causing a massive stir in the European Union.
Yep.
Other countries that have a very strong nationalist kind of view are also now thinking about leaving. You know, there are political swings that are moving towards that.
Yeah, I would think what is most likely going to happen there is they're going to wait and see what happens with us.
Yeah, and when we are fucked really hard
Mm.
and left on the ground bleeding, other countries are probably going to go, no, we're not going to do that. But the damage will still be done, and it will leave the European Union weaker, which will allow Russia to take more liberties with all of the countries that are on its border.
Yeah.
So, all in all, we're basically fucking out over most of Europe because we want our sweet, sweet sovereignty, mate.
Yeah, I would argue that the majority of people who voted to leave were voting on what they perceived as their own self-interest, not the interest of Europeans.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Oh, so depressing, Matt.
There's that old analogy of there's that comedian on Mock the Week who said Brexit is very much like a cup of tea, in that if you put the bag in the cup of tea and leave it there, the bag starts to look as if it's weakening, but you've got a stronger cup of tea. Whereas if you just dip the bag in the cup of tea, the tea as a whole is quite weak, but the bag goes straight in the bin.
Oh, I like that. That's good. That's good. Oh, yeah, that was good. All right, I think that's enough about Brexit.
All right.
Because I am genuinely getting a little bit depressed.
I'm not even sure any points were made.
No, we didn't. We just literally just went, it's gonna be shit.
It's gonna be so shit.
It's gonna be so shit, and I'm gonna have to pay more for my precious fig leaves.
Which reminds me, I need to apply for dual citizenship for Germany.
Which reminds me, I need to marry a German.
Well, if I get dual citizenship, we'll get married.
Oh no!
Quick fix.
No, you're not worth the citizenship.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
Fine, I'll marry someone else.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, you will. Okay.
No, I will. I totally will. Yeah. No, you're right. I'll get that sweet German citizenship, and then I can go and work as a mechanic in Germany, where they probably do their jobs properly. Oh, shots fired there. Hope nobody at work listens to this. Anyway.
Shall I do a topic?
Yes. Please do. Before I dig a hole any deeper for myself.
Earlier we were talking about like how the opinion that you express can be picked apart and analysed and see whether or not it stands to criticism.
Right.
Now I had another subject which is semi-related to this, which is this practice of deplatforming, which is where people are invited to speak at a place, and then there's such an outcry against them being allowed to speak that they are disinvited.
Right.
And the like colloquial expression for this kind of strategy is known as deplatforming.
And I've only really come across this happening to like YouTube celebrities.
Okay, I mean I'll use the example of like second wave feminists like Germaine Greer, who is a TERF. She trans exclusionary I forget. So Germaine Greer makes the case that argues that argued. Let's say it correctly. Said that she didn't feel that the experiences of a trans woman were comparable to the experiences of a cis woman.
Just like to take a moment here to say that that's fucking bullshit, but please continue.
Well, yeah, that's fine. But my point is, she was invited to speak at Cambridge, I think, and the trans community at Cambridge, there was like a mass outcry, and she was deplatformed. She was disinvited from speaking.
Yeah. I don't agree with that either, though.
Yeah, my question is this: if your ideas are so fragile that you can't debate them, are they even? Do they really hold merit? And also, isn't that really what academia is meant to be? So, like, if you can't, if your only response to dealing with an idea that challenges you is to prevent that person from expressing that opinion in a space, surely your idea should quite rightly be shipwrecked on the shores of mediocrity.
Aren't you just the Catholic Church in the 1600s?
Am I?
No, as in like.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, so like I find that quite interesting that it's like, no, we're not even going to have this debate because I'm right and you're wrong and you have no right to speak. I mean, it gets a bit convoluted because we have some quite ambiguous hate speech laws in the UK, which is one of the reasons why it can be done.
Interesting. Because we have some quite ambiguous laws about work bullying as well, which is something that I was looking up about because, so like, did you know that basically bullying doesn't exist in English law, essentially? Like, the closest we have to it is harassment.
Yeah, or discrimination.
Yeah, but like, harassment is only classed as harassment in the workplace if it fits a certain criteria.
The same with discrimination, though. So if you bully someone because they're disabled,
yeah,
if you could show that there's a clear link that you're treated differently.
But you for harassment to be harassment in the court of law, it has to link to a certain topic. So like age, race, gender, disability. There's a couple of others. I can't remember all of them. Yeah, but if it doesn't fit in that, there's no case. Mm-hmm. So say if somebody is bullying you about the quality of your work, like even though your work's great,
okay,
and you have no case, you can't go, that's not fair. I'm leaving this job because of the bullying that I have in the workplace, and they'll go, well, it's not.
You would make the argument. You wouldn't do it because of harassment. You wouldn't make the case it was harassment in the workplace, though. You'd say it was unfair dismissal.
No, as in like you're leaving your job because of the bullying. You're not being fired. You're quitting.
That's your choice.
Yeah, exactly. But
but you're saying they should have.
For example, if it counts as harassment and you leave your job, that counts as a failing of your employer to uphold your health and safety. Like
that's an interesting point.
But if it's not to do with any of those topics, doesn't count.
Yeah.
And the fact that like bullying in the workplace is actually a massive issue in the UK. Like I have some stats here on my piece of paper.
Oh, hello. You've been really prepared. I've got stats.
No, I've got some stats, man. Look, no, I have to find them, but I've got them. 30%. It was 30% of like, it was obviously just a survey, so you have to take that into consideration. I think it was 6,000 people. 30% said that they suffered from harassment in the work, like bullying in the workplace.
Yeah.
Directly, and then another survey found that 60% of people either said yes, I suffer from bullying, or I have witnessed it. And there was a hotline where 20,000 people a year phone up and complain about the fact that they're being bullied at work, and like the impact of that in a monetary sense is apparently estimated at 18 billion a year.
Wow.
So that's how much it costs the UK's economy to have bullying in the workplace. And yeah, that's what I thought, because I was looking it up. Because I mean, the reason I started looking it up is because at work, my work environment isn't 100% friendly and relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue you have a response to that, which I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on, just because. Yeah,
I know. No, I'm aware. No, I wasn't even referring to that. This is just a general day-to-day thing rather than the racism. But like,
wasn't me. I didn't say it.
Hey, man, like, we're just having a conversation, man. I'm just asking questions. Anyway, and so it kind of got me thinking about it because, like that, I don't feel like I'm being bullied at my place of work, but I only think that I'm not being bullied at my place of work because I'm strong enough to not be subjected to it. Like there was clear attempts to try and start bullying me, and I quashed them.
Shot them down.
Yeah, because I'm used to it.
Made it clear. I don't play that shit.
What I said was, I ain't no bottom bitch. But it I'm currently training as a mechanic, so I'm an apprentice, and like if I wasn't a 26-year-old man who knew what he was doing, I'm pretty sure I would be bullied to hell and back.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's what's been happening in this industry for the last 50 odd years.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's not the only industry where that happens.
No, definitely.
And then I'm pretty sure, and so it spreads out and out, and then suddenly I go, yeah, do you know what? I think the UK actually might have a problem with this shit.
That's an interesting point, because it actually reminds me of a correction that I want to address regarding what was said on the last podcast.
You do you.
Which was
go ahead.
Where we discussed I basically said that I felt that most discrimination would be corrected if you dealt with the issues of economic mobility and who holds the reins of power.
Right.
And that is I did say it in the last podcast as well, but I just kind of want to reiterate that is not the same as saying sexual discrimination and racial discrimination don't happen and that they aren't a problem. That's not what I was. It's not for 1 second what I was arguing, and I wasn't for 1 second suggesting that there is no point in having these discussions. But the point I was making is that the best solution for this is for all of these groups of people who are affected, all these minority groups who are affected by this, if they all came together and tackled the issue of economic mobility, I think far more change would happen far quicker. That's all I was trying to say. So I don't want to, for 1 second, make that sound as if I'm coming across as feminist or basically saying that racism doesn't exist. That isn't for 1 second what I was trying to say. Or that what's it called when you don't like trans people and homophobia? Transphobia, homophobia, and all that. I'm not saying none of that stuff exists.
I'm glad you figured it out, because I was sitting here going, "Oh my god, you know what? I can't." I've
forgotten as well. Damn. And I don't mean to. I didn't if that for 1 second came across as me diminishing that struggle. I apologise for that. It's not what I meant. It was more me musing on what I felt the potential solution was. So regarding workplace harassment, the reason this reminded me of that is because there are a hell of a lot of powerful institutions where sexual harassment is rampant, and the Harvey Weinstein scandal is like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I mean, law firms that have internships, I don't think it's a coincidence that those interns tend to be young women.
Highly attractive women.
Yeah.
In a conventional sense.
Yeah, so there is a very powerful power dynamic there that I am fairly certain would be abused.
It's interesting you said that. I have more stats on my sheet of paper.
Hello.
Which is 50.
It's almost like we planned this.
I know, right? God. It took me all of 10 minutes with my smartphone. But
we didn't actually plan this, by the way. I mean, the notes on the paper, but the smooth transition from one topic to another, I'm quite impressed by.
Well, I just feel like we've had a lot of practice.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
You know, years and years of conversation. I mean, when we started out, we were just barely stringing a sentence together.
Yeah.
But, true. Anyway, 50% of women, in another survey, reported bullying in the workplace.
Yeah.
So it's 50%, and apparently, 50% of women was from Opportunity Now, which is a charity specifically focused at opportunities for women in workplaces.
Right.
So, I'm not saying that that is a biased survey, but I'm saying I don't know the charity. It could have been a biased viewpoint. There could have been some skewed data in the thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But another source, which I don't know actually where it came from, said women are 11% more likely to be bullied than men.
Yeah.
Which I feel like it would actually be a bit more than that. But then I'm not sure if that's
I would also say
11% more likely or 11% more women.
I also wonder how much the phenomena in domestic violence statistics comes into play there. So men are far less likely to report domestic violence than women.
Oh, right. So like
So
men are less likely to
report
say
bullying.
that they're being bullied. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because men are meant to be strong and emotionless and
Yeah.
not feel pain. Yeah. Yeah. All right. White apparently.
It's not like nonetheless. It's interesting.
Yeah. Ethnic minority. 55% of people in work who are from an ethnic minority feel that they are not valued at work. Whereas it's only 18% for white people.
Yeah.
And managers are 43%. There's a 43% chance that the manager is doing the bullying, as opposed to a 38% chance of a co-worker doing it, which sounds fairly even, but then there are a hell of a lot less managers than co-workers.
And also the power dynamic is completely different.
Yeah.
So I would argue that like all harassment is a problem, don't get me wrong, but if it's a harassment from your boss as opposed to a co-worker, the options available to you as to how to deal with it,
the issue is magnified. Yeah, because when your boss starts having a go, there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, unless you've got a very good HR department.
And I genuinely think that most of this is because of the cultures that are developed by the companies themselves, like the kind of like extreme competitiveness within the company.
Yeah.
So like for example, where I work, like every sector has its own budget, and they have to pay the other sectors if they interact. So like if like the private sector needs to pays the workshop to fix the trucks that the private sector uses, and have to factor that into their budget. So so things happen where like the workshop will get a cheaper part that's going to take longer to get there, so that they pay less on their budget, but then they make the other sector pay way more in their budget because they have to wait 2 or 3 weeks for the part and stuff like that. And so this whole thing develops like anger, rage. People have goes at other people because they're costing them money and that sort of thing. And the whole thing just ends up developing where everybody, it's completely hostile and completely pointless because nobody's losing money because it's all within the company. Like, it doesn't make sense. Just don't make sense. What's wrong? Somebody could surely come up with a better blooming method than this.
Potentially. I mean, I don't like. This is an area that I know very little about.
Me as well.
Corporate structuring is not a specialty of mine.
No. To be honest, having experienced it, I'm not sure I want it to be a specialty of mine because that's some cold shit, man.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
So. Yeah. Oh, another thing I wanted to add to last week. The person who introduced the concept of intersectionality was a woman by the name of Bell Hooks. She wrote a book called Ain't I a Woman? She's wrote a number of books, actually, just to be clear, but the one that intersectionality is specifically brought up with is...
The one what I read.
Ain't I a Woman? No, because I brought up the subject of intersectionality.
I think you mentioned who it was last time as well. But
I couldn't remember her name.
Oh.
And I wanted to give credit where credit was due. And she wrote that as a woman of colour in response to the second wave feminism that was doing the rounds, which predominantly came from middle class white women. So she brought in the concept of intersectionality to basically just highlight like all this stuff that you're saying about with regards to feminist theory is great and all, but like there is huge chunks of things that you seem to be missing out and ignoring, and I just kind of want to say that.
Right.
Which she did. Well, I might add. So
she did it. She did it well.
Yeah. That's another clarification for last week's podcast.
Hey man, no, it's cool. Right in the middle of our conversation is exactly the right time.
Well, no, because I thought I'd kind of come to an end. Like, sorry, did we want to talk? Did we want to talk more about corporate structures that we know nothing about?
Oh, mate, like we need to talk about that for like 2 hours right now. And we need to just make it all up. So like, what you do is you have like a manager and then a sub manager. No, I'm not actually going to do this. So let's have something off your list, man. Like. My list is getting a bit brassic now.
I understand. There was someone I forgot to mention last podcast with respect to.
No, carry on.
All right, I thought you said no.
I said uh-oh.
Yeah. Regarding men, particularly in positions of power, and their ability to get away with sexual harassment and rape. Because they are in that position of power. There was one key name that I forgot to mention.
This is a heavy fucking podcast.
And it's David Bowie.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, all right.
David Bowie had underage groupies. Not only that, there's a lot of accounts of how he groomed them. But there was no outcry when that came to light, and there was no, on his death, a rehashing of that. I did notice there were a few attempts to, which were kind of shot down. And I think part of the reason they were shut down is because a lot of these groupies kind of came out and said it was what they wanted, and please don't turn my sexual experience with David Bowie into a rape.
Right.
My issue is this: age of consent laws exist for a reason, because the argument is that you are not in a position to consent to it, and I understand that he was a rock star that
the law must be upheld.
I understand that he was a rock star that you really liked, but that's exactly the problem. He used his cult of personality to sleep with you when the law says you're not at a point where you can be cognizant enough to make that decision. And like the argument that like one of the direct quotes I remember reading from one of these accounts was, "Of course I slept with David Bowie. What girl didn't want to sleep with David Bowie?" Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So like I find it quite interesting that there hasn't been this massive outcry against David Bowie regarding what I would argue is a clear abuse of power and pedophilia and sexual assault. He also, I believe, helped another rock star whose name I forget kidnap an underage girl and hold her hostage until she became old enough for him to sleep with.
Wait, what?
I'm not making this up. Like seriously, this happened.
Jesus.
I shit you not. Like, so.
That's some weird fucking shit, man.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like something else like we talked about earlier. So gonna have to change names again.
Yeah.
So let's say Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur and Sally, let's say, and Jim. So Sally and Jim.
Sally, Arthur, and Jim.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So Sally and Jim are having a conversation with me, and Arthur's mentioned, and I go, "Oh, I'm pretty sure Arthur got caught with child pornography on his computer, and he's got done for it." And Sally and Jim go, "Oh, that's really strange, you know, because he's such a nice guy."
Yeah.
And he's really friendly, and he's always been so nice. And I go, and actually, to be fair, when I brought it up, there was a lull in the conversation for about 30 minutes, and then later they started talking about how nice he was, and then I went, yeah, but he did have, he has been done, because whether or not it was hentai or whether or not it was actually pictures of kids, he has been done by the police for this. Surely this should be taken into consideration. And the response was, yeah, but ignoring the fact that he had child pornography on his computer, you have to say that, you know, you have to admit he's a really nice guy. And I'm like,
So the reason you're bringing this up is because in the case of David Bowie, it's that his fan base was so strong and loved him so much that they can forgive that or even try to.
Well, ignoring the fact that she was underage, it was completely consensual, and she was really happy about it.
She feels to this day that it was completely consensual.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
it's like going, well, ignoring all of the killer sharks on the beach, this is a really nice place to have a swim.
Also, and I'm really sorry to make it go this dark, that is a really common thing when it comes to victims of sexual assault. They believe that they wanted that thing to happen. A lot of the therapy that comes around that is learning to accept it for what it is.
That is
sorry, I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I'm just where did you get that from?
Why do I know that?
Yeah.
That would require me to go into a level of detail that I'm not comfortable going into.
Okay. Well, my only question is because it needs to come from a position of somebody that's studied it, or from a peer-reviewed source or something along those lines. I'm not asking you like some personal experiences. I'm just saying.
Some of my friends are psychiatrists who.
Right. Okay. That's all we need. That's all we need. Cool. And only because me, I could go, Like,
yeah, but this is the first time you've asked me to kind of explain the source of something, whereas
yeah, but it's the first time you've gone that dark as well, though.
But when I say like a US, there's a defector from Russia who went to the US, and that's the only reason we know about. That's the only reason we know how to identify the N series nerve agent. You weren't like, oh, why? How do you know that, Matt?
Okay, what I was essentially trying to say there was because I know where you've got that from, and that's from some news source or something along those lines, right?
It's actually a collation of multiple sources.
Right.
One of which I actually can't tell you.
Okay. Man of Mr. Essentially what I was trying to do there was I was trying to go, yeah, but this isn't coming from a personal experience because personal experience is all well and good, or somebody else's personal experience because that's all well and good, but you can't use personal experience as a way of arguing.
Oh, you're wondering if it's anecdotal? It's not.
Okay, yeah, that was all I was asking.
Anecdotal.
Yeah, cool. That was really dark.
Yes.
I feel like it needed to be said.
The thing here is, like most people, this isn't common knowledge, and because it's not common knowledge, it taints the way you interpret things.
Or maybe people know and they've forgotten. They don't care.
Well, they don't care because it's David fucking Bowie.
Ignoring the fact that he had child pornography on his computer, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that happened. So I am really, really confused by this whole David Bowie thing, and I would love the public to explain it to me.
But you won't get the public explaining anything. You'll get individuals.
That's fine, but I'll take the aggregate result of that. If someone could explain to me why it's okay and why it shouldn't matter, please.
Well, because she liked it, Matt. Clearly.
Again.
And that, by the way, isn't my point.
Yeah, I know, but
I want everyone else to know, Matt. I know you know.
Mate, okay. I guess my point is, taking everything that we've said so far, please defend it. Please bring something new to the table that explains it. Because we've established why. It doesn't matter if she says, even still to this day, that she wants it. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, we've gone dark here. And then...
David Bowie.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, if you can't laugh at it, what can you laugh at?
Oh, there was a question related to Russia, actually. This is a question I heard about through a friend who studied philosophy at university, and they had a lecturer who they would play a game, and it would be a controversial statement, and you had to defend it. Very clever. So, for example, does what a woman is wearing ever is that ever a factor into why she was sexually assaulted?
And you had to say yes.
And you didn't just have to say yes. You had to make an argument
for it.
Yeah.
Right.
So the point of this exercise is to get you thinking outside the box. That's what it's there for. In case people are wondering, well, why on earth would you want to do that? That's why.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to really understand why you think what you think and why it is one thing rather than the other. And it makes sense, particularly in the case of law, because it's these kinds of thought experiments and questions that allow you to kind of pin down how law should be framed.
Yeah.
Without vaguity and.
Well, there's also the old saying, walk a mile in their shoes.
Yeah, yeah. So. The question I wanted to ask is the use of chemical weapons ever justified?
And you want me to argue the point of...
I'm just curious.
Yes,
well,
having a chat about
I can make a few cases for why there are certain situations where it can be justified.
Ooh. Wow, okay. Go, shoot. Tell me these situations where you think it would be justified.
Hostage situation. You use a nerve agent that puts everyone on the floor, and then you run in with emergency responders, and you administer first aid to everyone.
Okay, but is this nerve agent going to cause any long-term effects, or is it just...
If it's done quickly enough, no. In the same way that if you're doing
it's like sleep gas or something like that.
Sleep gas doesn't exist. But
if you...
Yeah. My point is here, you're incapacitating everyone going in and administering it. Yes, there are risks, but equally there are risks if you storm the place. So...
It's going to be one hell of a nerve agent to be able to immediately incapacitate everyone with a gun so they don't kill anyone, though.
But like I said, you are doing a dynamic risk assessment of the situation, and all I'm saying is, are we honestly saying that there is never a situation where that wouldn't potentially be less risky than the alternative?
Last podcast when we said we were living in the dystopian future.
Yeah.
Police forces using nerve agents to incapacitate entire rooms of people, and then going in and just giving everyone the antidote. It's pretty dystopian future right there.
Or after the London riots, when they asked that Samsung instant messaging app to shut down,
and they refused.
Yeah.
Damn right they refused.
Yeah, but my point is...
Oh my god, can we talk about the London riots?
We can do,
It's like it was a while ago, but oh my god, that was so amazing.
I kind of think that question was done pretty quick, but alright.
Oh, sorry. Okay, the question, was there ever...
Is the use of chemical weapons ever justified?
No. Moving on. No.
Okay, you want to talk about the London riots, Jake?
No. Okay, so nerve agent, it would depend entirely on the nerve agent, because
yes, yeah, no, completely.
That's a pretty broad spectrum.
But like any weapon is appropriate in the right context.
Yeah.
A handgun is useful in a certain situation, and a shotgun is useful in another.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So yeah, it would depend on the nerve agent you were using, and you would use the correct nerve agent for the situation.
Because I guess at the moment we're talking about essentially the Geneva Convention and banned.
Yeah,
weapons
they're
of
all
war.
banned, right?
Yeah. So I don't think the question is there ever a point where chemical weapons or nerve agents are justified? It's more a question of how badly could this weapon be misused?
Yeah. First of all, chemical weapons are already used. So
Sorry,
pepper spray is another one.
I messed up. All right.
No, I also messed up with the question because I'm also talking about like biological agents.
Zombies! The apocalypse is coming.
But yeah, no, there are nerve agents that you can be under the effect of incapacitated by, given the correct treatment, and will make a full recovery. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are outliers, just as there are risks in any situation.
Yeah. Well, but how long until we're gonna get our own little, 3D printing machines at a nano level, which means we can then engineer our own.
Did you not hear about
biological weapons in our front rooms?
First of all, that already exists. The potential for that already exists. It's one of the most unregulated aspects of the maker culture that exists. You know about maker culture?
No. Okay, let's talk about this.
So like bioengineering, where you inject strips of DNA into organisms and modify them. That already exists, and you could do it by.
Wait, stop tape.
And you could do that by mail order.
Stop right there. So you can literally take something that is already an organism, inject a part of DNA into it, and it will then change it.
Yes.
Over time.
Yes. That already exists.
Can I have gills? Pretty please.
You can try.
Yes. Okay, not being funny, but let's play God. Fuck it. I know it's unregulated.
At the moment, the whole thing is still in its infancy. But have you not seen there's transhumanist movements where people are body modding themselves so they can see better in the dark, and so there's people removing.
I did not know this.
There's people doing self-surgery and removing their irises so that they can see better in the dark.
What? Surgery on themselves, doing their own surgery?
Yeah.
Well, I get someone else to do it.
Yeah, there's the anarcho.
Is that? Oh wait, stop tape. Is that Chronicles of Riddick level eye surgery right there?
I honestly don't know.
Do they see worse in the sunlight and better at night?
I can't tell you.
Because
I just know it exists.
That's also really cool. Yeah. Just genuinely cool.
Yeah.
Oh man. And it's completely unregulated, and you can get machines that you can just do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can get the.
I'm guessing it costs a lot.
You can get the precursor compounds relatively cheap. You can even request certain sequences of DNA by mail, and then they'll deliver it to you.
Well, how much are we talking?
Enough so that communities in America can do teach genetics and bioengineering to kids in a garage. That's why I know about it. The biomaker movement.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is. But also kind of terrifying.
Well, yeah, but
I mean,
life is terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, I fully support it. But my point is, there is when it comes to issues of national security and public safety, there is a huge amount of shit out there that people I don't think people realize just quite how easy it is to make a chemical weapon.
Right.
that would cause some serious harm.
Getting us on that watch list there. Thanks, Matt.
I'm already on a watch list. I've been brought to the attention of is it MI5 that does internal national security and MI6 that does external?
I don't know.
I think MI6 does.
Let's simply refer to them as them spy guys.
Ministry of Defence. I'm pretty sure I've come on the Ministry of Defence's radar more than once because I've got first of all because I've got a friend who works for the Ministry of Defence. Actually, I've got a couple of friends who've worked for the Ministry of Defence, and when they will have gotten that job, all of their associates would have been looked at. And given that I will have been one of them, I'll have been looked at.
Yeah.
And I've made some purchases and bought books that would most likely put me on the list.
Fair play. You had to buy my camp, didn't you? God.
That's probably not the one that got me on the list. Well, that would be part of it, definitely. But
I do actually need to read.
Not only have I bought Mein Kampf, my travel history includes going to Israel. So. Yeah.
And South Korea.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah. So.
Both places I really need to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man.
Yeah, and there's other books that I've got that I've purchased completely legally, I might add.
I know.
And you're
an upstanding citizen of the UK.
I mean, in conjunction with the books I've bought, there's electronics components and equipment that you could use to make nefarious items.
You're making a supercomputer, aren't you?
Well, it's on the to-do list.
Along with hydroponics, building a forge.
Yeah, and electrolyzing water.
Anyway, we're going off topic.
Hydrolysis of water.
So let's now talk about the London riots. Because, the London riots genuinely restored my hope in the population of the UK.
Hello.
Just genuinely did. Purely because of how, a couple of thousand teenagers managed to run rings around the entire Metropolitan Police.
With no training.
And just phones and bikes.
Yeah.
And did it with relative ease.
Yeah. Well, also, the other thing with that is a lot of it was completely uncoordinated. It was the aggregate result of individual decisions that culminated in, a real kind of snowball effect. The one that blew me away was some kids just took it upon themselves to set fire to dustbins outside fire stations, so that the response time for which had the effect of meaning that the fire department's ability to respond to more serious fires elsewhere was hampered because they had to deal with the on-site issue, and there were similar attacks made against police stations. That just a couple of people just thought, what we should do? We should go do something to the local police station. So they were too distracted at the local police station to deal with the major issue elsewhere.
Jesus.
And none of this was coordinated. This was just a mass group of people who
got angry.
Individually amongst them made certain decisions that had massive consequences later.
Okay, so let's try. I'm not done.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm not done. So first of all, I need to start this all off by saying that, despite my avid fascination and wonder at the London riots, a lot of people got hurt, and a lot of horrific shit was done to a lot of small business owners, and I don't condone any of that because it was all fucking rough and not cool. And I've seen videos of kids getting beaten up,
and the motivations of a lot of those involved are very questionable and wrong.
And a lot of people took advantage of the chaos in order to commit crimes.
Yeah, in order to profit from it.
Now, disclaimers aside, let's talk about it.
Still as well as me.
So it kicked off because of a protest march that was all about the fact that a young man got shot.
Yes.
By the police.
Yes.
So I kind of looked into this. So he was in a taxi.
Yep.
The armed police had responded to it because they had been told that he had a gun.
Yep.
And when he came out,
Yep,
wasn't true. Oh no, did he chuck it before?
He chucked it.
Yeah. So the armed police came along. He chucked his gun away before they got there. He got out, and the police shot him.
Mm-hmm.
There was a pregnant pause there.
It's alright, compose yourself.
I couldn't say one way or another whether or not that shooting was justified. I personally, like from the viewpoint of I'm going somewhere where somebody is armed and we're trying to deal with it, I can see why they would have shot.
Yeah.
However, there is also the thing that, the spray from the shooting hit another police officer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like that indicates to me it was panic shooting. Like
potentially.
Yeah. So like somebody lost their cool, essentially.
Yep.
And somebody died.
So yeah, there were guns in the situation.
Oh, and this young man was black.
And someone was concerned that they might get shot because there were guns involved, and they panicked a little bit. Not gonna lie, I would.
Yeah. Then again, I'm not trained. But even if I was,
yeah, again, like based on like accounts, based on this is anecdotal, but this is based on multiple people I know who've either worked with firearms or have been in the army and shit like that. Like you always shoot yourself.
Yeah.
Like this idea that there are just people who are like the Rambo style person who just gets used to it
doesn't exist.
It's bullshit. Over time, you can absolutely get acclimatized to it.
It's very rare.
Yeah, like. So it doesn't surprise me that our police armed response might
have shot themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least one of them has shot themselves. Like.
Yeah.
And in that process, may have accidentally opened fire when he shouldn't have done, or opened fire in a way that was against procedure.
But
what I find difficult about that is, if I remember rightly, they never respond with fully automatic settings, so it would have been single fire.
But it was fully automatic fire.
Ah, okay.
Well, I actually don't know. Like, all I know is that there was like several shots were fired, and the only reason a police officer wasn't injured was because the bullet was embedded in their badge or something like that. Like, so
first of all, if there was a policeman there with armed response, he would have been wearing body armor.
Oh,
just to be clear.
Like, all right. But another officer was hit. I seem to
I don't remember that. But
really?
Yeah.
All right. Maybe I'm misremembering. Anyway, beside the point. Like, I can see how it went down. I can see how it happened. It's damn unfortunate because the guy was unarmed, but there's no way that they could have known that.
Yeah.
There was a protest march about the fact that he was shot.
Yep.
Because obviously he was unarmed when he was shot, and people were angry about that.
Yep.
Again, completely understandable.
Yep.
Where it all went wrong was when they tried to block the protest. Am I remembering this correctly? Like, essentially, at some point, the protest turned into a riot.
Yeah, this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I think there were other people who joined the protest, and they were the ones that got violent. It's like after the dust settled, and like there was a full investigation. Predominantly the people involved in the initial protest had nothing to do with the riots, but a number of people who joined that protest then got very angry. Yeah.
Right. Because I thought there was some sort of like police intervention on which kicked it off.
Just to be clear, for those of you that don't know, there is a certain level of ghettoisation within London, so you'll have particular minority groups that are grouped together within London, and part of that protest went through a part of London that was predominantly people of African descent.
Right.
And so, tempers were flared enough as it was because of what had happened, and I think that was like the match that lit the touch paper, so to speak.
Yeah.
And when on top of that, I believe there was a heavy police presence along the protest. If you're angry at the police and there's a protest and the police are outside, I'm quite sympathetic to why people would suddenly flip out.
And they did.
Sorry, empathetic. Sympathetic's the wrong word. I'm empathetic of why some people would flip out.
And it did kick off. And what then happened was the most glorious few days.
What happened next was amazing.
It was just simply astounding, because it was nice to be reminded that the establishment should fear the people.
Yeah.
Because
and also it was nice to see just how what's the word? Opportunistic people can be. I know that might not seem like something you should be proud of, but like,
okay.
or
So-
like to admire, but like in this context, I do.
So things were happening where people were putting up lists of places that were going to get robbed, and nobody was saying that they were going to rob any of them. You were literally up to you to decide which one you were going to. So the police could get hold of these lists, but they'd have a list of places and they'd have to pick which ones they wanted to go to, and they had no idea of where they were going to get a lot of people and where they weren't. So you ended up with like a van of like six riot police turning up to thousands of people like looting a factory or whatever.
Yeah, because ultimately it boiled down to what people decided to do.
Yeah.
And they couldn't police everywhere. They couldn't have a van full of police at every location. And there were rabbles of that would form and then disperse as pretty much as quickly as they would form, and there was no way of kind of pinning anyone down.
Yeah.
Which is a prime example of why the government should be afraid of its people. And like the reason I like the London riots is for that reason. It is a reminder that we ultimately have the power, and if things get bad enough and we don't like what the government is doing, we can absolutely do that. That isn't me like sowing the seeds of dissent. That's just me pointing out there does eventually come a point where if the government is becoming tyrannical against its people, you are well within your right to overthrow the government. I don't think we're there yet.
Preach it, brother.
I don't think we're there yet, but one day. And like, and if I was sat here talking about like why we should, currently under hate speech laws and under the Terrorism Act, I could get done. Like, I literally can't say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I literally can't make the case for overthrowing the government by highlighting by shaming its ineptitude.
Wow. Well, when you're not
I
here,
I say that as if like it's no big deal overthrowing the government. Like, I appreciate it is, but like I just find it interesting that there is a huge number of laws that like prevent me from even suggesting it.
Well, when you're not here next week, I'll know what happened. But yeah, and there was a couple other things that happened in the London riots which really kind of warmed my heart. Like the Muslim community essentially came out and blockaded their entire area, including a load of like shops that they had nothing to do with, and just went, "Nah, you're not doing it here." And that worked.
As well. The Sikhs as well. And you never. And if there's one thing I know is
never fuck with the Sikhs.
Never fuck with the Sikhs.
Fuck me. Nope.
They are a warrior people. Not to generalise, but like they've been defending a stretch of land for I forget exactly how long, but for a shocking amount of time, and usually outnumbered, and they've held it. So like, if there's one thing I know, don't fuck with the Sikh.
there's another add-on to there. Don't fuck with the Gurkhas. Whoa. I dodged panthers as a child.
Oh god, yeah, man, that guy was so cool.
Okay, tell that story.
I'll tell that story. When I was stacking shelves at Sainsbury's, and one of the security guards was a retired Gurkha veteran, and he was just like, I don't think he actually needed the job. He just did it to pass the time because he enjoyed it. And this guy was, I think, probably over 60, but there was not a doubt in my mind. Like, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2". He was like 5'6", right? So I'm towering over this guy, but there wasn't a doubt in my mind that I would be out cold before I'd realised I'd fucked up. Like, I'll put it that way. This guy was one of the security guards at Sainsbury's, and we do the rounds, and we'd occasionally chat, and we'd talk about different subjects, and he was telling that I was stacking blueberries on a shelf once, and he came over and he picked them up, looked at them, and laughed to himself and put them back on the shelf. And I said, "What's funny?" And he goes, "I used to pick these as a kid in Nepal." I was like, "Oh, right." He's like, "Yeah, you had to be careful though, because there were big cats that would come kill you." In my head, I was just like, "Damn! If you're dodging like wild beasts as a child, like no wonder Gurkhas have such a reputation." The other one, which kind of just highlights my naivety at the time, was he was talking about how he'd had to bar a customer because like they had a history of shoplifting, and he basically refused them entry, which is part of what they do, part of what the security guard's duties are in the store. And he could tell from the way the guy was behaving that he was potentially going to give him grief when his shift ended. Like, he was going to wait outside and try and jump him, that kind of thing, which is, again, another common thing that bouncers and anyone who works in security has to deal with. This thing of when you leave work, you're potentially going to get jobbed by someone who feels you've slighted them. And he was like cool and calm about it because what is this kid gonna do like to this guy? But he meant like he just happened to mention in passing that he had his old his service knife in his glove box in his car. And I said, do you not like worry like if you accidentally killed him, like what would happen in court? And his response was if I killed him, it wouldn't be an accident.
Oh, what a badass!
And in my head, I was like, I don't actually doubt that for a second.
You.
Like I completely and utterly believe you.
So very quickly, for those of you out there that don't know, the Gurkhas are a race of people who have, I don't know how long it's been for, but essentially they have the UK has a regiment.
It's a throwback to the British Empire.
Yeah.
And when the British Empire got very good at building its empire, one of the things that they would do when they basically took over a country is that they would train up the local forces to become British soldiers, British Empire soldiers. So if you look at India, for example, there is the military hierarchy within India is based off the British model because of the British Empire's influence. And these regiments were given names and classifications what's it called? Regalia, that was British Empire regalia. Which again is why if you look at Commonwealth countries, a lot of them have military regalia that's very similar to the British, because of that. It's to the British Empire, because of the history behind the British Empire. One of the regiments that got formed with the Nepalese were when the British Empire went to Nepal, a lot of the Nepalese were brought in and formed into military units and regiments, and they did a lot of touring globally, which is why like there's quite often that outcry when you see World War I and World War II films where there's an underrepresentation of people from different nations. So, for example, there were Sikh Spitfire pilots during the Battle of Britain. There's a whole raft of really interesting stuff which I highly recommend you read up on because there's some fucking incredible stories there. The head of there's a really cool story surrounding the Nepali, surrounding the Gurkhas, which was early on in their founding. There was a massive military, what's it called when they go on? It's a parade. There was a military parade showing. There was a visiting dignitary in India who was they put on this parade to kind of like show them the spectacle of like British Empire, the Empire's might. And the regiment of Gurkhas were amongst the parade. And he turned to, I forget what the name for the head of state of India was in Britain. There's a particular title that he had. And he was the one who put on this military parade. There's a story. The story goes that the visiting dignitary leant over to him, pointed at the regiment of Gurkhas and said, "Who are they?" And he goes, "Oh, they're the Gurkhas." And he says, "What can you tell me about them?" The head of state's response was, "If a man tells you he's not afraid of dying, he's either lying or a Gurkha." And I don't doubt that. Like, I think that title is well earned, and like if any of you are still doubting the badassness of Gurkhas.
Oh no! Let's talk about that guy. There was a Gurkha who, on his own, held off. Like killed.
It was 50. It was 50 Taliban insurgents.
Yeah. Did he kill 50 or did he hold off 50?
He held off an attack of 50, and of that, I think he killed like 45. Like
yeah.
Something insane.
Yeah, but he had like some sort of light machine gun.
Yeah, he burnt through 300 rounds.
In placement.
Yeah.
He ran out of ammunition. I think he killed the last ones with no ammo.
Yeah, he killed the last ones with the stock of his gun.
Yeah.
And he also threw like 20 grenades or something.
Yeah. So one man held off 50 insurgents, ran out of ammo, and killed them to death. Killed them to death.
Killed them to death.
With the stock of his gun.
He
what the fuck?
I've got his biography.
Who does that?
I've got his biography. I haven't read it. I keep meaning to go back to it, but
man,
I've got a really fucking long reading list at the moment, and I've got his biography.
I'm gonna have to read that.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is,
fucking hell.
If you're still doubting the just sheer amazingness of these guys as soldiers, it should be very apparent to it says a lot that they were assigned to guard Harry when he was over in Iraq. He wasn't given special forces or SAS. He was given Gurkhas. Like, that should tell you everything you need to know.
For anyone who doesn't know, Harry is part of the monarchy of the UK.
Yeah. So the prince of our country.
England.
Yeah, the prince of our...
Shouldn't say UK there. People are going to get pissed.
Yeah. So, that should tell you everything.
The monarchy. All praise the Queen.
I think we've
Tipple, what?
I think we've sucked off Gurkhas enough.
But they're so cool, man.
Yeah,
No, I need to tell the story of the Gurkha in Plymouth.
Oh, do you?
Okay, yeah. So, when I was in Plymouth, there was this huge Gurkha was walking along with his girlfriend, who was about 6 foot tall, blonde, stunningly attractive. And this Gurkha was about 5'6", walking beside her. He had a suit on, and he had an umbrella. And 3 or 4, what I can only describe as chavs, came up and they were like, "Wee, you alright, mate? Oh, what are you doing with a short foreigner like that? You should get with us." And I'm pretty sure they were ruder than that, but I'm not going to
get with a real man.
Yeah, that was it. You should get with a real man. And then I proceeded to watch the beautiful spectacle of watching a Gurkha beat up 4 guys with an umbrella.
And not even break a fucking sweat.
No, didn't even unbutton his jacket. It was. I think he might have unbuttoned his jacket, actually.
I mean, I've heard some other stories.
But
I've heard some other stories from people who have served in the army, where
I have as well.
Yeah, where they'll if it's a military town where there's a military base, on weekends if you've got leave, all the Scotties will go out and get absolutely shit faced, and generally cause a lot of bother. Which is why like the military police for that barracks tend to have strong ties to the local police, and they'll tend to be out together in military towns to deal with this shit. And there was one where there was a tour of for some reason I think they were going out to Iraq. There was a group of there was a force of Gurkhas who were temporarily staying at this barracks before they were shipped out. And the military, one of the military policemen happened to be giving, the lieutenant, or, whoever was in charge of whichever Gurkha was in charge of that entire force,
yeah,
was out with the military police having a tour of the town on Friday night. And had I'm not familiar with military, a lot of military terminology and how it's all phrased, but, there was 3 Gurkhas and this head of military police having a wander around this military town on a Friday night, and a bunch of squaddies were heavily kicking off. There was about 12 squaddies heavily kicking off in a bar, and the policeman had contacted him, and they were like, "Oh, let's go. I'll come show you this." And so the story goes that when they arrived, the police was like, "I don't know what to do." They're causing absolute havoc, and there's 12 of them. And the military policeman is just like, "It's okay." And he walks in with these 3 Gurkhas stood behind him, and as soon as they walk in, crickets. As soon as all the squaddies clock the Gurkhas, they immediately stopped whatever they were doing. And we're just like, "All right, sir." And he was just like,
I hope that's true.
And literally just said, "Back to base."
Oh, the military is a weird place.
It is weird, but you get stories like that.
It makes it all worthwhile. Yeah.
Anyway, other subjects.
Okay.
Go on.
Nah, I think I'm out, pretty much.
Okay.
If you've got some.
Oh, I've got loads then.
Oh, sweet, alright.
I want to paint. I want to do a little thought experiment.
You want to paint? You want to paint me like one of your French girls?
Always, man. Always. There's a couple of things actually. Let's bring it back to Brexit before.
Bring it back to Brexit.
I'm not going to paint the picture just yet.
Strong and stable.
Strong
and stable.
The question I want to ask is this: will there ever be voters' remorse on either side once it happens?
Will there be?
What I mean by that is, if you voted Leave, Brexit happens. We turn into Japan for 20 years as our economy completely stagnates and fucks up, and the value of the pound massively drops, and a load of other shit happens, and we hit hard economic times for a fucking huge chunk of time. will there ever be like a mass outcry from people who voted to leave saying we got it wrong? Will that ever happen?
No.
Equally, if it happens and it's a reasonable success, like the economy continues to grow, like there's a little dip, of course there's going to be a little dip, but everything kind of corrects itself and we go on as normal and there isn't
Leaving was a good idea.
Yeah. Like you can't say that it fucked us up. Is
Right.
my point. Like so that scenario where it didn't fuck us up, and it
You will definitely never get an apology.
you'll never
from
hear
that.
Remainers. You won't hear me going, you know what? All right, it worked.
Like, because it's not just about the economic hit. It's what I harp on the most about at the moment, because it is going to be a drastic hit, or at least that seems to be what's going to happen. But like, there are so many other reasons why I feel like we should remain, and I feel like a lot of Remainers are like that. It's not just about the whole, oh, but we don't want to lose the money. It's also the fact that it's like, but the European Union is a good idea, and working together is a good idea, and leaving is just taking a massive step backwards that we're not really going to recover from in the next half century.
Yeah, I get it. Half century, you think it's that bad?
Possibly.
50 years, sorry.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, we'll all be dead by then, but... No, that's not true, but there will be massive...
We'll be dead by then because of all the nerve agents.
No, there'll be massive... No, there's going to be environmental issues in the next 50 years that I think are going to overshadow the fact that we left the European Union.
Or amplify the fact that we left.
Or amplify that fact. Yeah, because, just... Ooh, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, but, you know, the global warming's just a myth by China.
Oh, my God. Yeah, you're so right. I got it so wrong. So did all those scientists and all those peer-reviewed papers and all that evidence, and I mean, who really cares about experts? We're fed up with experts,
We've
Matt.
had enough of experts getting it wrong, Jake.
We're fed up with experts, Matt.
The actual quote is that. Not that I feel substantially changes the meaning.
We're fed up with the experts getting it wrong, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, for anyone again who doesn't know, part of the Brexit discussions prior to the vote to
the
leave,
week before the vote, this quote did the rounds.
Which is, like, we're tired of experts getting it wrong, essentially, because sometimes experts get it wrong because everyone's human, but because they got it wrong sometimes, that means we ignore them. That's how it
I
works.
wish we'd apply that like rationale to like
politicians.
Mechanics. Mechanics often get it wrong, so you may as well.
Right, fuck! I'd already lost my job then.
You may as well just ask anyone to do it, or surgery, or doctor, or like medicine. Yeah. Well, which I suppose is why alternative medicine is as big as it is.
I've been a practicing surgeon for 20 years. Yeah, but the last patient you had died, so I think I'm going to get Bob to do it.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to get this guy who thinks wind chimes will fix it.
He's going to install a wind chime next to my heart, and it's going to make me so much better. It's going to center my chi.
Yeah. What the actual issue is the feng shui of my room.
It's going to unbum my apex, man.
And there's so many toxins in my colon, I'm going to have to
my God.
Shove a hose up there and pour coffee in it.
And the spirits that live in my home of the dead
with
people.
With a little bit of bleach so it cures my autism. That's another thing. Colonic irrigations of diluted bleach to cure autism.
Fuck off.
No, that's a thing that was doing the rounds.
Yeah. So they're just I've heard of bleaching your asshole, but that's like bleaching your whole digestive tract. That's really weird.
Yeah. Apparently it cures autism.
Yeah, because it needs to be cured. Oh my God.
No. Sorry, the issue. I understand.
Yeah, I know. The issue is the fact that they're putting bleach up their ass, but like
not just their ass, the asses of their children.
Yes, but I think like just the general idea of, because wasn't it Autism Week recently? Anyway,
I should know this. I have autism. I don't know.
You should, but you don't. No, not autism. You don't know. I thought for a second there, I was like, yeah, you should have autism, but you don't. You're just a twat.
Digging a hole, Jake. Digging a hole. If anyone wants to quote mine that and completely paint it out of context, feel free.
But you see, the problem is that if to quote mine it, I need to be able to say it uninterrupted. But because you talk over my last word so often, nobody's ever going to be able to get a proper quote off of me.
Oh, shots fired. But you're right, I do.
Not that I mind. Because you always have something interesting to say. So.
Yeah, well. Kisses.
Anyway, I can't remember what I was going to say now. Oh yeah, autism.
Yes.
It was Autism Week. and it was going around the rounds that essentially don't support Autism Speaks because, like, and I can't remember exactly why, but I think it essentially boils down to the fact that Autism Speaks was like portraying autism as something that you are inflicted with that is a shame, whereas autism is basic, like it's just a really, 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 really unusual personality to have.
No.
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 Okay.
I mean,
I got it wrong. Explain to me.
The problem with this kind of stuff is whenever you start having talks about it like that, whenever you start talking about this, it's to do with the reason they're saying that is because they're trying to correct public perception as opposed to. So, for example, like there are a lot of people who still believe that autistic kids are the result of bad parenting, which was a myth that did the rounds back in the day, like in the 70s and 80s, and there's people that still believe that. I mean, Jesus, there's people who still believe cot death is because their parents murdered their kids. Like there's some fucking nastiness out there.
Jesus.
And unfortunately, that nastiness is what we like spectacle and we like polarizing views. So unfortunately, they occasionally get a platform and get to cry from the rooftops, and when it does, it's a fucking national debate. I understand why people are saying that, but speaking of someone who like has grown up with it, I can honestly say that yeah, it was really difficult growing up being autistic. Now, there are many things that can be done and are trying to be done to kind of make that as least unpleasant as possible. But to pretend like it's never an issue, I think is absurd. Like to pretend that like it's not gonna like make things difficult in certain situations. Again, that's ridiculous. That's like saying like I believe that I can read despite the fact I can't. Like,
right.
There are limits. Like it does hamper your ability to do certain things, and like let's not pretend that
but
it doesn't.
can also enhance your ability to do things.
Yeah,
as well.
sure, but again, that then gives birth to the trope that autistic people somehow are magic. Like, which is why you keep seeing it in fucking TV, where you've got characters who are like on the autistic spectrum, which explains their genius. They did it with fucking with Hannibal. Like, again, that needs to stop. Like, not all autistic people are magic. Not all autistic people can hear a piece of music and play it instantly. Like, they're not all savants, which again is another trope.
Like, my point being is that like there are some things that they struggle or can't do, and there are some things that they are better at or will be better than they otherwise could have been at, and that's just a way of, like, it's just a way of being. It's not like a disease you have.
Yeah, no.
With.
I mean, like, I agree with you. I agree with that as a concept, but like there are factors to it. So, for example, one of the things depending on where on the spectrum you fall is your development curve in child psychology terms as to normal child development is off. So, skills that an 8-year-old has picked up, a neurotypical has picked up by the age of 8. May take a person with autism the age of 12, as an example. So there is a hamperment there in the development of certain social skills,
right?
If they even pick them up. Like, depends on where on the spectrum you fall.
Jumping very quickly back to Autism Speaks, I took the liberty of looking up why you shouldn't support them.
Right.
Just because I didn't want to leave it at,
yeah.
I think they're kind of bad, man.
Yeah.
So apparently only 4% of their budget goes towards actually helping individuals with autism and their families.
Yeah, they can go fuck themselves.
No, but it gets better. It gets better. Let me find this. It is... Oh, yeah. The majority of their funding goes towards autism research. Not research for improving therapies and equipment for individuals with autism, but to research a cure.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can speculate as to some potential ways that you can cure it, but not with sound like. Actually, let me just share this story with you. So, for example, potential avenues where I can see cures potentially developing for a lot of neurological development issues is deep brain magnetic stimulation, which encourages synapses in that region to fire more. So if you stimulate that region, and in fact I know they're currently doing this for autism, If you stimulate that region, so let's say that you can identify the region of the brain that is to do with your ability to pick up social communication skills. So if you wear this device and it stimulates that region of the brain, that region becomes more active and new pathways form, and your ability to learn social skills increases rapidly. And if you're thinking like, well, if you doubt the science behind this, I'll give an example. They've identified regions of the brain where creativity sits, and you can have this device put on your head, and you will your art skills will improve just by having this device fitted to your head.
I want one.
Yeah, I do too. I really do too.
I mean, I'd use it for like completely useless things, like getting better at art. But like, yeah, I want one.
Better orgasms.
Sorry, not use. Oh, what? Oh,
Can you imagine that?
Oh, Matt, you had to make it smutty, didn't you?
Anyway,
God.
A bit of filth.
Sorry, don't think I can have better orgasms, thank you. Anyway, moving on.
Sorry, guys.
You're not sorry.
I'm really not. Jake the comma.
See, all I heard there was Jake the comma, and I was like, I am the comma. I intersect the sentence, giving it form.
But the thing here is, this is you literally interfering with someone's brain to make them develop a certain way. Now, saying that out loud should make you feel uncomfortable.
But it doesn't.
It depends how it's used.
Well, yeah, true.
So, like, this is going to increasingly become a question within like how we treat criminals. Like,
very quickly before we move on.
Yeah.
When you said, and if you feel uncomfortable when I've said that, you should. It reminded me of Watchmen, the movie, where they're talking about Dr. Manhattan, and he's went, Dr. Manhattan is God. God is among us. And if you feel the stirrings of fear and a sense of unease, do not panic.
It only shows
you are still sane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good quote.
It's a good line.
And you totally interrupted me.
I'm sorry.
I know. You're not.
It's a tick I have. Like, I finish people's sentences. I don't know why.
Yeah, like I've got driver's Tourette's. Like.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I believe that you can take away the negative side effects that can result from having autism and mitigate them. And part of that, currently, what most of that is therapy treatments and exposure stuff and one-on-one development of social skills and key skills in that area to the point where it's, you can function better in society, which is what I got a lot of. But then this is like a new branch where you're also you're making modifications to the brain to change that.
You're allowing the brain to be able to develop.
Yeah. Now, whether or not you want to classify that as a cure, I don't know. We don't truly fully understand autism. There's multiple schools of thought regarding it, and regarding like the architecture of the brain. Like, it's not like you can currently scan a brain and like, yep, that's an autistic brain. That's not how that works. So with the when it comes down to our understanding of autism, there's still a lot of work to do. So like whether or not you can cure something that you don't necessarily fully understand yet, like anyway.
It's never stopped us before.
Yeah, I mean, like, as for this as a charity and that being their main goal, I can understand why people get touchy against it. The decision to focus on that specific line of research, I don't know. I'm glad that I have it. I can say that. I'm glad that I was born autistic.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that as like autistic and proud. I'm saying that as I'm glad that I have this, what I believe to be an alternative perception of reality that most people don't, and because of that, it's shaped who I am now, and I like who I am now.
I'm glad you had that too.
Yeah. Equally, like, to bring it back to this kind of controversy of manipulating the development of the brain. This is one of the reasons why Ritalin and ADHD medication was so controversial when it first came on the scene, is because it was essentially a controlled kind of brain damage, where you are stimulating the brain in such a way that the certain pathways shut down and others activate, and mitigates the issues of ADHD. Now, I took Ritalin myself, and I'm currently in the process of going back on it, or variant of it anyway. So I can understand why people feel tetchy about that when you're interfering when you're quite literally interfering with the development of a child at their formative years. And unfortunately, if in that instance, if it's going to work, you have to do it at that point in time, because at that point in time, you're laying the foundations for the rest of your you're laying the main foundations for the architecture of how your brain works for the rest of your life. That's not to say we don't make new connections. It's just there are things that happen in childhood that are permanent. So you are making modifications at a time that will be permanent, and I can understand people's apprehension of that. I can say for me it worked and it really helped, but I also know that for other people it made things a whole lot worse, and that damage is permanent. Yeah. So I completely get the controversy surrounding it. But I would add to that, that was 20 years ago. No, 23 years ago when I started doing that.
You're so old.
Yeah, so 23 years. So 23 years have gone by, and our understanding of that have
increased massively.
Yeah. So I'm not up to date with it now. As up to date with it now. For anyone listening who's got a child with ADHD or autism,
listen to your doctor first.
Yeah,
listen to the professional, because although they're sometimes wrong, they're usually right.
I'm sorry, some fucking snake oil salesman on the internet. Like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So just, trust doctors know what they do. I do.
Yeah.
Or at least they're the best person to trust.
They're a better shot than
They're better shot than some
us.
Than some quack on the fucking internet, including me.
Yeah, you quack. You are quackers.
Yeah.
That was such a bad joke. Oh. Anyway. I've lost my point. Damn it. Anything else on your list you wanted to talk about?
There are things. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, the little picture I was going to paint you. All right. Little thought experiment.
Yeah.
Because how you answer. Sorry, but how you answer this.
I think they were. Don't worry about it, man.
How you answer this, I think truly reflects what your political leanings are, and also what your intrinsic values are.
Okay.
Depending on which side of the.
Am I allowed to think about it, or should I answer
You are
immediately?
absolutely allowed to think about it.
Cool.
But I think as I describe the scenario, you're going to very quickly realise what's going on.
Okay.
So, scenario one. There is a sum of money available. Doesn't matter how much that money is, but let's just say it is a very large amount.
Okay.
And this, you've got two choices. The problem you have is the amount of illegal immigration into your country.
Okay.
And the way people get into your country is multifaceted and quite complex, and like some of it is to do with abusive visa systems, and some of it's by plane, some of it's by tunnel, and some of it is overland and by sea. So your country is in possession of one of the largest land borders that exists in the world. Project 1 involves building a wall along it. And maintaining that wall with security guards and cameras and whatever other equipment you've got to stop people coming across by land from the neighbouring country. So you can use that amount of money to do that. Alternatively, you take that money and you use the skills of your country. Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm painting this picture. To add to this picture, the process of building this wall will create jobs. That money will go to pay wages of the workers that build it and the construction industries that help build it. So all of that money re-enters the economy, let's say. And I'm not going to quibble about how much of it enters the economy in real terms and isn't shilled off by okay. So let's just add to that fact that by spending that money there, you're re-injecting it into the economy, into your economy specifically. Project 2. Project 2 involves you taking that sum of money and the considerable set of skills that you have as a country and supporting your neighbour to improve the economic situation of its entire population, to help it deal with issues that are plaguing it internally: government corruption, drug cartels, organised crime. Like all of this stuff is stuff that you are in a prime position to use this money for, and to have a skill set and a whole load of equipment that is suitable to help with this, because you've been doing it in other countries that you've recently invaded and rebuilt. So you could take that money and do that, and the point of it, and you raise everyone's economic position to the point where the benefit of illegally migrating over the border into your country and working illegally no longer applies. Both projects reduce illegal immigration the same amount. Which project do you back?
I have the best ideas. I'm going to build a wall. A wall. It's going to be a big wall. It's going to be very high, so they can't get over.
A beautiful wall. And I'm going to put my name on it.
It's going to be Drumpf's wall. Okay. Yeah, obviously invest in your neighbour.
You say obviously. I'll make some counter arguments, but like, why are we spending money on people that aren't part of this country? Why should we use taxpayer money to improve the lives of people that don't live in our country?
Because we're one race and one people.
Get out of here, commie.
You socialist commie.
I'm just
yeah, I know.
Predicting the responses.
You socialist communist. Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah. But the problem being is, but you've put me in this position where I get to choose, and thereby I choose. I know. And fuck your opinion.
I know I put you in that. Oh yeah, no, this is true. But now your political career is at stake, and now I'm questioning your decision.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Like I'm gonna go out with a bang.
Bernie would have done option 2.
Bernie would have tried. Doesn't necessarily mean you get it in though, because
that's true. This is all true, but I just think that's an interesting one in the sense that if you're saying that you want to spend money to do Project A, and Project A is
I understand that you keep the money in your economy.
Let's not just use it here. Let's use it in the UK. The amount of money that's used to police our border. When if you look at what the demographics of the people who are trying to get in illegally are, what would happen if you spent that money that you're spending on border defence on improving those countries? Does it level out? That's the whole point of the question.
I mean, there's always option 3, which is take that vast amount of money to take whoever it is that's entering your country illegally and develop them into a meaningful member of society. Because I'm pretty sure the whole thing of
productive
money
not meaningful, because that implies a whole bunch of other things.
Well, fuck productivity. I prefer meaningfulness, but
you're saying they're not meaningful.
Oh right, yes. Sorry, yeah, no, that's not what I'm implying.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, the whole thing of the money invested in a college student, uni student. Sorry, college, fucking America. A uni student. They put 10 times that amount back into the economy.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure that would apply to illegal immigrants that you then educate and train.
Totally.
So why only reinvest the money into your economy when you can invest that money into the people that are coming into your country and get a 10-time reward? That's
a great point.
Thank you.
But it completely invalidates the scenario that I'm trying to paint, so I'm going to ignore it. No, you're quite right, and there is a term for this. It's called economic multiplier. We touched on it last podcast, actually, when I said that for every $1 invested into NASA, $2 enter the economy. It's because it has ancillary effects that contribute to the economy. Unfortunately, getting most people on the street to understand what an economic multiplier is and that whole principle and concept, and then apply it to issues that have entered the public consciousness is a lot harder than it sounds. Why that is, I don't know. Not to sound really fucking patronising, but I honestly don't get it. I don't think it is that difficult a concept to understand, and you don't have to work that hard to find it out. But then equally...
Well, it's because most people are living, day to day, month to month, dealing with, £1,000, and then they apply that, so that's basically the only kind of experience that they have with money is budgeting their own finances in order to get through the month. And then they take that and they apply it to the budget of a country and go, okay, I understand that we'll get it back eventually, but we need to pay the rent right now.
Mm.
Which goes to, I understand that if we invest in NASA, we'll get $2 back eventually, but we really need to deal with the fact that my neighbour's black right now. Like that's an extreme example.
No,
but
I do get what you're
Yeah.
saying with that. Yeah.
yeah, like my racism is more important than the potential economic benefits of
Yeah,
investing in
given
this. Or
and given what the perceived threat to
Yeah.
them is, and I emphasise perceived threat to them is.
Yeah.
I do empathise with why they hold that position. I completely disagree with it.
Yeah.
But like I empathise
and that
with
was an
why.
extreme example,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
do tend to go for the extreme. So a better example would be like, however, right now I really want them to invest that money in the steel industry because that's where my job is.
Yeah, or schools.
Or schools, because that's what my kids are. Oh,
Yeah.
to be fair, we need to do invest.
Or water,
we
because
need to
we
invest
haven't
in...
had clean water in 18 months in Flint.
In where?
Flint, Michigan.
Fucking hell, really?
Yeah, their entire water infrastructure is fucked. They've been busting in truckloads of water for the last 18 months.
Jesus. I'm the best president. I'm going to give Flint clean water every day for a cheap, cheap price. Fucking, that was a really bad Trump impression.
It was, but
I'm
yeah,
comfortable with that.
I don't know what to think of him. I do, but
Oh, like there was the thing of him basically just like when they were talking about gun control, going like, "No, we're gonna take their guns."
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and that blew my fucking mind.
I love the line I love is where he goes like, "I don't even care about due process, just take their guns." And I was like, "Yes, just do that, do that."
Like, if you do nothing else, do that, and you will be remembered forever.
I will sing your praises for doing that. Like,
Build your wall. Take the guns. Do the both
although
things.
speaking of riots in the street, that is what would happen if he did that.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because this is the issue you've got. Like if you try and amend the Second Amendment, like the amount of militia groups and gun advocates and gun I don't mean to well, when I say gun nuts, like I don't mean that disparagingly, because I understand why they feel so.
Enthusiasts.
Yeah, I understand why they feel so strongly about it, and it like
Guns are fun.
Yeah, I get it, and also like the whole kind of like
Make you feel like
the whole
man.
birth of your nation stems around the firearm. I get it. Like
Man.
it is part of your culture, and that's fine. But also, that part of your culture is what's killing your kids. So I do have to question your values somewhat. Like,
ooh, that's yes, quite.
I have to question like your sense on it. And like if you like I mean I've made this argument before, but people on the podcast won't know this. But like honestly, I just think America should adopt the Swiss model when it comes to firearms, which is that. I think in Switzerland, every man is required to have militia training, and like every Swiss man has a rifle that is government issued, but they can actually purchase
Locked in the safe that's regulated, and the box and the other safe where the ammo is kept.
Yeah,
and they're not allowed to have the weapon loaded unless they're at the firing range.
Yep.
All things that don't happen in America.
Yeah. So my point is, you can preserve the Second Amendment as it is written if you adopt the Swiss model, and I guarantee you'll have less school shootings if you adopt it.
Yeah, because every other country in the world is pretty much an example of how to not have school
There were
shootings.
2 incidences of mass shootings in Switzerland involving firearms. Well, obviously mass shootings, but there are 2 instances, and that's across 100 years. Which is less than mass shootings involving firearms in the UK. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
There are more firearms in Switzerland per capita, but there are less shootings.
Yeah.
Less mass shootings involving firearms.
Yeah.
So everyone can have a gun.
Yeah, that crazy taxi guy with the double-barreled shotgun.
Yeah, as an example. There are others.
Yeah, I know. Then again, we also had that guy in the bloody bar with the needle, HIV, infecting everyone.
Yeah.
Like, that was grim. Jesus,
this podcast has been really fucking dark.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's because it's snowing.
Yeah, that's probably why.
You know, overcast clouds. Puts a damper on your mood.
Oh yeah, I'm not doing this subject today. I'm just looking at my subject list.
Too dark. No, need something happy.
Seriously, it's dark.
Need some happy. We'll do it next week.
Did you know that as like a counter movement to Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day is seen as like...
Yeah, but Matt, what about Singles Day?
No, because Valentine's Day is seen very much as very much leading towards doting on the female.
Right.
We're assuming a heterosexual.
Is this steak and blowjob day?
Yeah.
Right.
That was like the counter to Valentine's Day. Like, what about Men's Day?
Okay.
Or during International Women's Day, the antidote to Valentine's Day was steak and blowjob day.
Okay. I have an interesting personal story about that. It's just a short, funny one. But like, it's on Facebook. And,
is this gonna get dark?
No. No.
Because steak and blowjob day and you talking about like a personal account sounds dark.
Thanks for that. No, it was somebody's it was somebody I knew's girlfriend was posting on Facebook, and she went, and the post was, when it's steak and blowjob day and you're sitting there watching your man eating a steak, wishing he'd hurry the fuck up. I was like, why are you not my girlfriend?
What's that line? Date, marry, or avoid? Marry.
All three.
All three.
Date you, marry you, and then avoid you.
Ouch. And then avoid you, become a cold husband.
No, that's not what I plan to do. I don't plan to get married, actually.
It's alright, I wasn't asking.
Oh.
Sorry, no, I'm joking.
Wow. Thanks, man. Oh, I appreciate that. Maybe I shouldn't talk about myself on this podcast that we have specifically for talking.
No, you absolutely should, because I did just bang on about autism and ADHD.
Talk
about your.
That was because you were informed about that. I'm not informed about marriage.
You're informed about your own decisions and what you want to do with it.
Yeah, true. But that was literally all I was going to say. I was just like, yeah, I'm not planning to get married.
Right on.
Like the closest I see to doing it is hand fasting, because I like the idea of committing for a year and a day and then revisiting each time. Because, do you know who keeps you on your fucking toes.
Do you know who confirmed that ceremony traditionally, historically? The blacksmith.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So if after the hand fasting they decided to stay together, they'd go to the blacksmith and he'd forge something that basically signified their union.
Okay, I'm totally doing that.
How cool is that?
I'm totally doing that. Did they do that every year and a day?
No. It's like
just the first one.
Once you've decided to commit to each other. And not have the option of walking away.
Is there an option to commit?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Yeah. I thought it was just constantly renewed every year and a day.
Not from what I've read.
Okay, I might just keep to constantly renewing it every year and a day, because that's a party every year.
I believe they would. I believe that decision would be given in front of the blacksmith, though.
The blacksmith. In history. Where's the blacksmith? Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, it's cool. Because I was looking up folklore like around the world regarding the blacksmith.
Well,
I think it was quite common in Wales and Cornwall. It was a very common practice there.
Well, I plan to learn blacksmithing. So does that mean if I got hand fasted?
Minister, yeah.
No, does that mean if I get hand fasted, I would be the blacksmith?
Is
that allowed?
I don't know. Like I didn't like research it that deeply where I can now give you a detailed anthropological.
Well, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to take that and I'm going to bastardize it for my own personal use.
You're going to appropriate it.
Yeah, I'm going to appropriate it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to appropriate that culturally. Yeah. There is something I like about paganism and like old school, like magic, like no, it's obviously not magic, it's not real, but like the whole I was having a chat actually about this because it was when I was in Ireland and I was talking about like old school Irish magic, right, and runes and all that sort of shit, and I basically just went, you know what, like old school magic, that was just LARP for them back in the day.
Okay.
Because I went, no, I totally get it. I totally understand like the appeal of it, why you do it. But I only understand that because I LARP.
Yeah.
Which is live action roleplay, by the way.
Yeah.
Which that's a long conversation to get into, and you did warn me about this, but it's too late. So.
I did.
Yeah. Oh, my bad. Anyway, the basic gist of it is that you kind of get into a role, and you explore a world that doesn't actually exist, but like a group of people is pretending it is. It's sort of like kind of like when you do a murder mystery.
Exactly like, in fact.
Yeah. So and one part of it is magic. So like you pretend that magic is real and you can do it, and you do rituals and stuff like that. And like while I was doing that in LARP, pretending, I genuinely felt like I was part of something, and I felt like it was happening. And that's exactly what I imagine old school paganism was as well. Like, they weren't actually doing magic, but everybody felt like they were.
Yeah, I mean,
and that was the magic in itself.
I would put it like this. I have a number of thoughts about this, and one of them is going to really alienate me from a bunch of people I know, which I will do.
You can keep your mouth shut.
Which I will do last. No, because I want to say it. The first thing I'd say is a lot of practices then stemmed around attempts to understand the environment around that group or culture. So it was ways of explaining how things worked and creating a strong, tight-knit community around a commonly held idea, which is where things like divination come from and all that. There's a way of it was an agreed upon way of how to interact and behave within your environment, and an awful lot of folklore and stories are attempts to explain. So, for example, the origin of elves in Europe stems from when you're like, so if you're walking along and you suddenly forget how to walk and twist your ankle, that was an elf. An elf had shot its arrow in your ankle, and that's the folklore surrounding elves. Whenever you do a little mishap, you drop a pot and it breaks, particularly when you're outdoors, that's an elf, and you never see elves because they're so stealthy, right? So like. That it's an attempt to explain the world around you, but I would argue we have better ways of explaining the world around us now. So as great as those stories are, and I still think that they are, which is why I know this shit, because I find it interesting and cool.
Yeah.
You have to take it as this is a way. This was used at that point in time to help people understand the world, the environment around them. And then other religions and other practices came along, and other philosophies developed and grew, and that spawned a new thing. Ultimately, that process gave birth to the scientific method and gave birth to the modern world that we see today. Like ultimately, that process
in a long-winded, windy, roundabout way.
In a long series of multiple generations and slight modifications over time, that's the world that exists today. Which is, and like cataloguing and remembering that and telling those stories. It's hugely important to remember where you've come from, how far, like where we are now. It puts into context where we are today. My issue with paganism and being Wiccan and all this stuff is that first of all, pagan is just someone who is a Christian. We're looking at like the etymology of the word, but on top of that, like what you're practicing as a pagan or as a Wiccan is what we know, and in many instances, stuff that has been made up for that time, and is. I don't know. I don't know what that is. In my mind, if cultural appropriation exists, there is a prime example. Like you are taking a bunch of stuff, recombining it, and filling in some gaps, and calling it a thing, and saying that this is what we once were. And I don't buy that. I'm sorry. You aren't an experimental archaeologist doing a deep analysis on like that anthropological aspect of a faith. From that is not what you're doing when you do that.
So kind of like a post-colonization Vishnu, bulbed up and labelled kind of crap.
Western kind of completely. Like it is a modern day man's interpretation of stuff that at that point in time was literally someone's life and how they perceived the world. And to pretend for a second that you even have one iota of understanding about that, I think is completely disingenuous. Insultingly disingenuous, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm on a high horse here. It's just if you expect me to respect that, I'm sorry, I have no respect for it.
Okay, you see, like
in the same way I have no respect for most faiths. Just to be clear, I'm an atheist, but like, yeah.
So like that's an interesting take on it because like I've also experienced that, and I felt a similar way. When I've come across Wiccans, and it's kind of like they're just kind of like they're like I said, like they're just
you may as well be laughing. You may as well be laughing,
right?
Just don't pretend it's serious.
But then there's the other side of things, which is people I've met who are aware that it's not real. They're aware of exactly what you've said, that it's stories back in the day to try and make sense of a world that they didn't understand, and we still don't at the moment. But we're
well, it's not just that. You're then filling in the gaps.
Anyway. God, I'm not even allowed to finish. What were you going to say?
No, go on.
Okay, but it's the best way I've seen it done is getting in touch with your ancestors. Like that sounds weird, but trying to hold on to a piece of your history. In kind of like, so like for example, like in exploring the runes that we used at the time and what they mean, and say maybe having a necklace or something that has the runes on it that spells a certain thing for you, like in order to kind of feel like you're in touch with it and to, you know, listen to the stories of folklore and stuff like that. Like I don't see a problem in that, and I can tell you do by the look on your face.
Well, my brow, the furrows of worry in my brow stem from like I'm trying to think up of like a similar thing, which is like I'm trying to think of like a similar thing about something else that like it would be a bit like. I think what I can make, what I can choose is like I'm still trying to work out like what a comparable would be. There's something about that statement that doesn't quite sit right with me.
Okay.
And I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it is.
Well, to be honest, as I was saying it, there was something that I was like, I haven't quite put my point across the way I wanted to here. This has gone wrong. So I understand, and I'm waiting for the criticism.
Like I said, if you're doing it, like, so there was that guy who decided to do I think it was like a 15th century Christian pilgrimage from one side of the UK to another.
That's quite cool.
To Canterbury Cathedral, and he did it using materials, clothing, and food preservation techniques of the time, because he wanted to experience what that Christian pilgrimage of the 15th century would feel like, and he walked, you know. Now, is it?
Well, I kind of guessed he might have walked, because if he did all of that and then took the bus, it would have been a bit stupid.
He wasn't riding a horse the whole way. No, yeah. So like I said, that's experimental archaeology.
Yeah.
He did that as an experimental archaeologist.
And it was fucking cool.
And now I feel that is more valid than someone saying that, you know, they've read a bunch of folklore and this is how they believe that their people, in parentheses, their ancestors, behaved, and this is what they did. I'm sorry, I don't buy that.
Fair.
And I don't buy that. It's kind of comparable for me with Scientology. Like, you've taken a bunch of concepts and you've created a narrative, but that narrative is not necessarily supporting that time, and you're kind of kidding yourself by saying that you do. Like, it's kind of like so. The reason I bring up Scientology is specifically because Scientology isn't recognized as a religion in Germany, and you're banned from entering Germany if you're a practicing Scientologist because it's a cult.
I love Germany.
So my issue here is, and the reason I bring it up here is. My concern is if you accept it as a religion, and the religion laws in the UK are kind of interesting, and this is a whole other podcast in and of itself.
Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, if you accept that as a religion, there comes a point where you then have to ask questions of like how much does that have to be respected? It's a bit like Rastafarianism. They're like, if you're a Rastafarian follower of that faith, you are allowed to smoke cannabis. You can't be charged for possessing cannabis.
Really?
Yeah, but also you can't supply it or buy it. So the question is like, how are you getting it? Like, for a Rastafarian to be charged for that drug, it would have to be as they were buying it off a drug dealer. That is the only circumstance in which they could be charged. For possession, if I remember rightly, they can't even remove it from them. Like, there's a weird exemption.
That's weird.
My question is, how much should you actually respect that?
Well, I mean,
to apply
nothing wrong with smoking weed.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but like, I'm talking about the principle of the thing.
Not that I do.
Yeah. Like, I'm talking about the principle. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I'd rather that all drugs were legal, but well, yeah. My point here is, how much do you acknowledge by giving that exemption, you are giving a level of legitimacy to a faith. A faith that is relatively new and is based off a drug that grew in the Middle East, not where Rastafarianism was born, I guess. What I'm trying to say here.
Seems like a really good excuse to smoke weed and get away with it, though. So.
Oh yeah, which I believe is what most policemen, when the subject comes up, is the take they have on it. Which you know.
I am a practicing Rastafarian.
And you can't join Rastafarianism. This is the other thing, which I think is potentially why they were given so much leeway, because it wasn't like there was going to be suddenly a massive explosion of Rastafarianism, to be recognised as I think there's like you have to be of a particular lineage. Let's use that word. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well. I mean, I don't know about you. I feel like we might be getting close to wrap-up time.
I think it was Q&A time.
Q&A? Oh, do we have questions?
Were there not questions sent in?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, the people said they were going to and then didn't.
Oh.
Remember?
Yeah.
They let us down, man.
Lame.
Let us down.
So
Q&A time.
There
Be here when people send questions in.
There is one thing I want to say at this point, which is that no comments were left on the previous podcast saying that that you'd watched the film, the Antonio Banderas film, Acts of Vengeance. So which can only mean that you watched it and.
I see where this is going. Yeah, you cheeky bastards.
And that I was right. Because Jake had specifically said, tell Matt he's wrong. And no one has commented saying Matt is wrong.
Matt, we have like 38 views and 1 like.
So that can only mean... that I was right.
Mate, when we...
Still as well as me being right, I was also completely wrong.
Okay, so for those of you who may have not listened to the third podcast, firstly, go and listen to the first podcast. But essentially, we got into a bit of an argument about whether or not Antonio Banderas got stabbed in a particular scene by a woman or one of the gangsters. And immediately after the podcast, we watched it, and Matt's face of amazement as he saw that, in fact, the woman did stab Antonio Banderas, and I was right, was... quite majestic and very price. It will be forever ingrained in my memory.
I'm seriously
I opened my third eye to watch it.
I'm seriously his aura at that point. Wow. I
was actually a Dresden Files reference.
I immediately started to doubt my own reality, and in all honesty, I still kind of am.
Really?
No.
Good fucking hell. But what I was going to say is that now you've said that massive spiel, if we ever do end up getting a lot more followers and viewers and stuff, it'd be nice if it happened, if not whatever. They are going to go back and watch all of these podcasts, and now on the first podcast there is going to be nothing but comments of "You're wrong, Matt. You're wrong, Matt. You're wrong, Matt." So not only were you wrong in the first podcast, you will eventually be wrong in the second as well, and I feel very good about that.
What I would say to that is look at the timelines. Look at when that video was uploaded, and then look at when those comments were left. At the time of podcast 2, I was right.
And on that epic bombshell.
Are we doing final thoughts?
Final thoughts on what?
Well, have you got any final thoughts?
No. I don't know, actually. No, I feel like we kind of covered everything quite well. I don't think there's anything I really need to go back on and go and this. Other than, the London riots were amazing.
My final thoughts are, don't get involved with more than probably about 7 or 8 people sexually. Work and your own free time will deteriorate almost immediately. You won't be able to keep everyone happy. Don't kid yourself into thinking that you will. It's more trouble than it's worth.
The wise words of your grandmother.
As my grandmother once told me, don't get involved with more than 7 or 8 people at a time. So those are my final thoughts. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, please feel hit up in the comments with questions for next week's podcast, and stay awesome, everyone.
I do like the fact that you were like, so those are my final thoughts. Jake no longer exists, and thank you for listening to my podcast.
Yeah, it's a lovely reversal from last week where you did that very thing to me.
Did I? Oh no! Well, now I just feel like a dickhead. In which case I should have let you do that, and then we could have alternated. But now it's too late.
No, it's cool. It's a bit. This is like another bit.
Right.
We string this out for another 10 minutes.
See you later, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure for you to listen to my podcast.